Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at a cold start to June for parts of the eastern United States. Now this is not going to be impacting all of the United States like these really warm temperatures are. They're pretty much impacting the entire United States. But this colder start to June, this colder air mass that's going to be moving from the Midwest to the Northeast, is really going to be impacting the northeastern quarter of the country here. So it's not going to be the entire country, but it will bring very cold temperatures and well below average temperatures, about 10 to about 20 degrees below your normal, and that's also going to bring low temperatures into the 30s for parts of the Northeast and parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes. So it is going to be a very cold, chilly start to the month of June when we're supposed to be heating up. But luckily, after this cold air mass moves through, it is going to start to warm up again, and we will be pretty much in the same pattern that we're in currently for the later part of May. So here's your current National Weather Service page, and we don't see any really cold related warnings or watches, and I don't expect any to really go out. Maybe a couple frost advisories over parts of northern upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, northern Maine, as well as potentially there for northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan. We'll have to see about that, and that really depends on each individual National Weather Service office. But we do actually have some heat-related warnings and watches over parts of the Southwest. We have over parts of Arizona, Nevada, and into California. We have some excessive heat warnings where you have temperatures over 100 degrees consistently throughout these areas. And then we have some heat advisories where it's a little less warm, but it is still very warm and above average. We have some flood watches in effect and flood warnings for parts of Iowa and into Wisconsin there. Now, here's just something I want to note. Yesterday, very quickly, you had this this low pressure system form right off the coast of Florida, and then it kind of tracked into parts of South Carolina and then turned around and went into the Ohio Valley. So right now, this is just a tropical remnant, so it's nothing that's really too bad except for you're seeing a little bit of rain with this upper level low. But this quickly formed, and this is actually our first landfalling hurricane or tropical storm over for the United States. So definitely something that just popped out, and really it was a very unexpected. The National Hurricane Center, I believe, the day before only had about a 40% chance or so of this developing. So I didn't decide to make a video because personally it was going into a very high wind shear area, and I didn't think this was going to develop, and I didn't think it was necessary to make a video. But unfortunately, this did actually develop, and it did make landfall to parts of South Carolina. So just something I want to note. Right now, not causing too many problems, but it did cause some flood-related issues over parts of South Carolina and North Carolina. Wind wasn't really too bad with this system. So let's get into your chilly pattern that we're going to talk about in today's video for the early part of June. So this is your first little low pressure system. Brings a little bit of cooler air to Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. But this isn't really what we're looking at here. This is, by the way, this is your height anomalies with a couple thousand feet up in the atmosphere, and this shows you your high pressure and your low pressures moving throughout the atmosphere. We have high pressures anywhere where you see those reds, and that usually indicates warmer temperatures. And then we have low pressure systems anywhere where you see those blues and those greens. That's where you're indicating most likely below average temperatures. So this would be by the 30th of May, and you're starting to see these two kind of merge together. You have this upper level low over parts of Ontario, Canada, and that's going to be moving its way and kind of dipping its way further to the south. So this would be by Saturday the 30th of May, and now getting to Sunday the 31st, starts to touch parts of the United States, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, Ohio Valley, and then it moves further east, and then it really plunges south, and it kind of disconnects from this Canadian low pressure system, and it moves further south, and this is actually going to move down into the Atlantic, and it's a very strong low pressure system, upper level low, and it's a very deep trough into the eastern United States, and that's actually going to bring very below average temperatures. You see, it kind of weakens a little bit then spins back up, and you see a little bit more of a cold air just lingering around. But then again, what I was talking about throughout the about early to mid part of June, after this colder air mass moves through, you're really going to see some warmer temperatures for the central, basically everywhere east of the Rocky Mountains is going to be fairly above average, except for parts of the west. That's where you could see potentially below average temperatures, but we'll have to see when we get a little bit closer to that event. So here are your surface temperature anomalies. This is going to be by the 30th of May, and this would be by Saturday. And now, as we continue, you see those below normal temperatures throughout the central United States, warmer on each coast. And now, as we continue, the 30th of May, this is when it really starts to get going by the 31st. And you're seeing anywhere in those greens, that's about 8 to about 16 degrees below normal, and then in the purples, that's about 16 to about 30 degrees below normal Fahrenheit. So it is going to be very, very cold and chilly throughout the Northeast and the Great Lakes, and that moves all the way into the deep South and the southeastern states, and that this is going to be by the 2nd of June, and now by the 3rd of June, still in place over parts of the eastern United States. And then you see that warm blast of air throughout much of the country after this very cold air mass moves through. Here's your 6 to 10 day temperature anomaly forecast, and you see we actually have a well above average temperatures throughout the central United States, and this is actually going to be valid from the 2nd of June. So this is basically the tail end of this through the 2nd of June to the 6th of June, and you see we actually have some quite below normal temperatures throughout the eastern United States, but the central United States really being very, very warm. But this is actually going to be at the tail end of this colder air mass, so it's not really going to be a good representation of what's actually going to happen. Now, I just want to show you your actual high temperatures and what this is actually going to translate to in terms of your real temperatures, your high and your low temperatures. So this is going to be your high temperature for Friday the 29th, and you see we actually do see a little bit where this is a bit chillier over parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and even into Iowa there. That's where your high temperatures are going to be in the 60s, mainly 60 to 70, and then maybe a couple areas dip below 60 into the upper 50s for your high temperatures. Now, for your low temperature that day, it's going to really be very, very chilly for this time of year. Potentially some 30s into North Dakota, and also 40s and 50s more widespread throughout much of the Midwest there. So here's what we're looking at in terms of your high temperature for the 30th of May, Saturday the 30th of May, and we're actually seeing a little bit chillier, but it moves a little bit eastward, so it's now not over the Dakotas and Minnesota. Now it's over parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan there, where you have your high temperatures struggling to get out of the 50s over those northern states, but then as you get a little bit further south, still it's going to be in the 60s and 70s, so nothing too bad for your high temperatures on Saturday the 30th, but then for your low temperatures for Saturday the 30th, widespread in the 50s and into the 40s and 30s as you get further north. Now, here's your high temperature for Sunday the 31st, and this is when it's moving into the northeast. Your high temperatures struggling to get out of even the 40s over parts of the interior northeast, over parts of upstate New York, northern Pennsylvania, and much of Vermont, into northern Maine and New Hampshire. That's where we're seeing your high temperatures struggling to get out of the 50s and the 40s. Now, let's actually look here at your for your low temperatures on that day, on the 31st of May, and this is going to be the last day of May, and we're seeing those very cold temperatures for your low temperatures, probably in the 30s, upper 30s for the most part, some middle 30s. So definitely some frost advisories could be issued, because I'm pretty certain that the growing season has started for many of these areas, so that would warrant a frost advisory, maybe even a freeze warning if we see a little some more readings closer to 32 degrees. Now, here's your high temperature for the 1st of June, and you see quite chilly over the northeast. This is pretty much one of the last days of this cold shot of air, and it's really very, very cold for this time of year over parts of the northeast, struggling to get out of the 40s and the 50s, some areas into the coastal areas, and also a little bit further south, still getting into the 60s, but that's still quite below average for this time of year. And then let's look at your low temperatures for that day, and we actually have your low temperatures getting into the 30s, the mid 30s, and even into to the lower 30s for some of these areas. So that's why you could see potentially some freeze warnings be issued if this does get if the National Weather Service does feel that it is warranted. And you see those very cold temperatures all the way to the coastal areas where your low temperatures are going to be in the middle and lower 40s and potentially even some 30s there. And then your final day pretty much of this very cold air mass, and it's going to really be moving out by this point. The 2nd of June, this would be a Tuesday, and this is moving pretty much all through, and it's back to right around your normal. We're seeing mid 70s for many areas. That's right around your normal for this time of year. And as we continue to your low temperatures for that day, it moves a little bit further east, but then those colder temperatures pretty much just in the 30s and the 40s and 50s as you get a little bit further to the south, and then you see it moves out to the east. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications to know this video when I do upload. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.